pass through the gate. There's a gatekeeper there, not
Right.
your neighbors,
Right.
not the people that showed up at caucus without an agenda,
Yeah.
just they wanted to serve their community. No, in the party, they're saying, we're going to vet you. Welcome back to the Professor Penn podcast, coming to you this Thursday evening, May 1st. This is episode number 202. It's a special episode where we have some special guests. David Penn, your host. I'm very glad to be with you. I hope you're doing well. We've got a lot of things going on, a lot of action. We're a political action community, and I have invited some acquaintances of mine. I hope we're friends by the end of this podcast to come in and tell their story. I want to introduce you to Carol Hexum and Merle Hexum. They have come down from northern Minnesota, boy, the way I said that, I sound like a native. Northern Minnesota, from Otter Tail County. And for the national audience, this will be a real instructive tale in how the Uni Party bends itself into a pretzel to stop everyday, hard-working, politically interested American citizens from participating in the political process if they do not agree with the status quo. When people come into this party, these parties are semi-secret societies. And when I say these parties, I mean the Democrat and Republican Party. Both of them function the same. At the grassroots level, anybody can come in and become a member of the party. But to move up in the party, to have juice in the party, you must adopt the party's perspective. And if you do not, well, that's why we have Carol and Merle here today to tell a national audience and all the delegates in Minnesota who are watching what they experienced. Now, I've been watching this for several years. I've never gotten the whole story. So I'm going to just turn over, we'll do a little bit of like, who are you? Thank you for coming. But, actually, I just want to hear the story. So first, where do you live in the state of Minnesota?
We live in Penn, Minnesota, which is in eastern Otter Tail County. So it's, you say up north, but it's kind of west central part of the state. Lakes area, there's like over 1,000 lakes right in Otter Tail County. So we're in the heart of the lakes country.
Are you close to Brainerd?
We are from Brainerd is farther east than we are. We're a little
Okay.
bit farther west. We're about 65 miles from the North Dakota border.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So, and this is predominantly an agricultural community, part of the state?
Agricultural, tourism, because of all the lakes, we get a lot of tourism and agricultural, yeah.
And it's not heavily populated. It's rural, correct?
It's rural, but it's fairly populated for that area because Otter Tail County in CD7 is the largest county, so we have quite a few people.
I made the statement on the last podcast, episode number 201. If you want to be the most important person in the country and self-govern, you go and get involved in your local party politics and you get elected by your neighbors. It's not a big deal. It's not hard to do. You don't even have to campaign. You get elected to become what's called a delegate. And what's important about being a delegate is when you're a delegate, you decide who your party endorses for local elections, state elections, for national elections. And in CD7, we have a Congresswoman, Michelle Fischbach, who is alleged to be the most maga, most conservative, most wonderful Congresswoman in the state of Minnesota. But apparently, there's some disagreement about that up in your backyard. Is that a true statement?
That is, yes, and how that they control CD7. So our former chair, who just got ousted, Craig Bishop, works for Michelle Fischbach.
Okay, stop, because on the last podcast, I went out and I said, Bobby Benson, CD6, resign. You work for Tom Emmer, please resign, because here's two American citizens. You're not on anybody's payroll. You just want to participate in politics, and we want a level playing field. where citizen volunteers self-govern.
Mhm.
The only self-interest I have is in the well-being of my family. That's why I do politics. I'm not on anybody's payroll. In fact, I'm losing money doing politics, which I should say, if anybody needs tires this spring, please go to target.com because we are trying to defray the cost of this fair. Isn't the studio beautiful?
It
Yes,
is.
it
Yeah,
is.
very nice.
Fantastic,
Very
right?
nice.
It
Yeah,
is.
It didn't
fancy.
jump up out of nowhere,
Right.
and we'd like to break even on the deal. So
Right.
please, if you need tires, find target.com. But my point is, we're not doing this to get rich. We're not making money. We're doing it because we love country. We love God. This is why
Amen.
we're involved in politics. And what I'm hearing you say is a third of the delegates from Otter Tail County, that's a very big delegation, will have a lot of influence on who gets endorsed in Congressional District 7 to be the Republican Party candidate, and then ultimately, if they win, go to Washington, D.C. and represent their fellow citizens.
Mhm.
And what I heard you say before we get into it, the former chair, Craig Bishop, who was recently defeated
Mhm.
in an election for chair by a new leader named Brett Bussman, that dude, Craig Bishop, works on the payroll of Michelle Fishbach. Did I get that correct?
Right.
Okay, continue.
Yeah. And not only in CD7, but in our own backyard, Otter Tail County, when we started getting involved with Otter Tail County BPOU, the BPOU chair, his name was Ben Anderson. He also works for Michelle Fishbach, making over $100,000 a year.
Oh, slow down. Slow down. Slow your roll. Slow your roll. Okay, BPOU, that's a basic political operating unit. That's the committee.
Yeah.
The committee that is the Republican Party committee that is representing the citizens of Otter Tail County. And did I just hear you say that's the current chair or the former
The
chair?
former
chair.
chair,
And his name is?
Ben Anderson,
Ben Anderson was working for
Michelle Fishbach.
also?
Also, yes,
Man, she's got a big payroll.
she does.
Holy moly.
Yeah.
That's a couple hundred G's she's got sprinkled out there into the CD7 constabulary.
Right.
Continue, please.
Also, Mandy Heffron, who was a state executive who just got defeated in a recent convention. She also works for Michelle Fishbach.
Wait, slow down. Who is this woman now?
Mandy Heffron was formerly from Morrison County. I believe she was the BPOU chair there. She got ran out of town, and she was appointed as the state executive after is it Jeremy Miller?
Tim Miller?
Tim Miller.
Yeah.
Tim Miller was our former state exec. He resigned, and then she replaced him. She was appointed.
On the state,
On
on
the
the
state
GOP State Executive Committee.
Correct.
And she's no longer on there.
No, she was defeated at the CD7 convention a couple
Oh,
of weeks ago.
wow. Boy, we've really had a big turnover up in
Yeah.
your backyard.
Nathan Miller is now our state executive.
Okay, please continue.
So,
So we had three people.
yeah,
Three
three of them.
on the payroll of a U.S. Congresswoman.
Right.
I would say their interest then would be to their employer,
Right.
not to the necessarily
Right.
the grassroots citizens of the district, correct?
Correct. Now,
Okay.
they would split hairs and say that they're not directly on her payroll because Michelle Fishbach, as a sitting U.S. rep, gets a federal account in which she can hire people to do it. So they're actually employees of the federal government, but they're hired by her to do her bidding for her. So
They use that, they use that
excuse. Yeah.
They did.
Yeah.
Wow.
Right.
Boy, I'm glad they didn't use it on me because I would have just looked at him and said, you must think I'm stupid.
Right.
Gosh, that's unbelievable. Okay.
Yeah.
This is why I wanted to come down, Carol. I don't think American citizens in Minnesota recognize this kind of thing is going on. It's a very uneven playing field.
Right.
Go ahead, please, sir.
Well, I think we have to start at the beginning. My wife and I, although we were conservative and we voted, we didn't get involved locally until after 4 years of Trump, and he started talking about draining the swamp. Well, we always showed up in November to vote against Democrats, but then as we find out, that swamp isn't made up of Democrats only. It's made up of both Republicans deep state people, the establishment type people. So we thought we would get involved locally. So we went to our caucus that year in 2022, and we became delegates.
And that
And
was relatively easy, wasn't it?
yeah,
You
right.
showed up
Showed up.
with your neighbors,
Hmm.
which we want everybody who's listening in Minnesota to get ready to go to caucus in February of 2026. It's really not a big deal. It'll be right in your backyard at the local high school, local community center. You'll be in a classroom. The people that'll be in the classroom will be people that you know, people
Hmm.
that, right down the block from you,
Yeah.
and the people that you know. You showed up, you said, I want to be a delegate. Did you go to the caucus with the intent to be a delegate?
That year, yes. I've been to other caucuses before, just kind of as an observer, but this year, or in 2022, we went with the purpose of moving on to become
Now, did you
delegates.
talk to some of your neighbors before you went there about voting for you?
No, typically, if you show up at your caucus, more than likely you would have been a delegate because it's hard to find people that want to do it, let alone it wasn't something that you had to campaign for or seek. If you volunteered, you were pretty much it.
This is my point to everybody who's listening. This is how easy it is for American citizens to get involved and make a difference.
Mhm.
You show up, nobody's there.
Right.
I want to be a delegate. Okay,
Yeah.
sold.
Right.
And then you're a delegate and you are the most important person in politics.
Mhm.
Please.
Yeah, so we became delegates and we went to our county convention. Just prior, a few days before our county convention, the word came out that the current BPOU executive committee had added names to the delegate list after caucus night. See, the thing is, if you want to be a delegate, you either show up on caucus night and get nominated and elected by your fellow precinct people, or they can do so. Somebody can do so for you. If you're not there that night, somebody could say, "I would like David Penn to be a delegate," and they could vote on you. But either way, it can only be done on caucus night, and it can only be done by those people in your precinct,
In your neighborhood.
in your
Your
neighborhood.
neighbors.
Right. So what our BPOU executive committee did after caucus night, they looked at all the precincts. We had 92 precincts in Otter Tail County,
Wow, that's a lot of precincts.
a lot of precincts, and they looked them over and they seen vacancies. So what they did is they got on their phone and they started calling family, friends, people they knew, and asked them if they would become delegates.
And for the listeners, you have precincts in your state wherever you are. It is a geographical area that is the smallest politically defined
Mhm.
geography
Right.
throughout the country. How many precincts do you have in Otter Tail County?
We had 92 at that time.
Wow, that is a lot of precincts.
Yeah,
That's crazy.
and basically up in our area, most of the precincts are townships. If you're in a township, that's your precinct. In the city, I'm from the city of Perm. The city of Perm would have been my precinct. Now, Fergus Falls, which is the largest city in Otter Tail County, they have precincts and they have wards. They have it kind of divided because they're a larger city. But for the most part, it's your township or your city that you show up at.
Okay.
Yeah.
So they were calling around,
Hmm.
kind of stuff in the ballot box is what you're
Right.
saying.
Yeah.
Okay. And how did that go down?
So, at our county convention, a gentleman who had discovered this, he had gotten photos from caucus night of a couple. There was 5 different locations, and for 2 of the locations, he had gotten the photocopies of the elections, the results. And when the actual delegate list came out about 3.5 weeks later, he looked at it and seen there was several names added to that. Now, he got to see 30 of the 92 precincts, and of those 30 precincts, 32 names were added. So that's more than one per precinct.
Okay. Now, who did the adding? Do we know?
Um, it was the Otter Tail County BPOU Executive Committee people. Yeah. Jordan,
That was chaired by who at that time?
that was chaired
Anderson?
by Ben Anderson.
Ben Anderson.
Tommy Miracle is on it. I don't,
What a great name for politics, Tommy Miracle.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
Tommy Miracle. Wow.
Tommy Miracle is,
Did he used to play hockey?
that I'm not
I
sure.
don't know.
Sounds like a great hockey name too.
He's originally from the Wadena area, but he had been living down in the cities. He actually, I think, works for Glenn Taylor.
Okay.
And so he's kind of a big money man in Minnesota. He moved back to Otter Tail County just prior to that, like around 2020, 2021, somewhere in there. So he's involved with it. And Jordan Rasmussen, are you familiar with that name?
No. That's why you're, Merle, that's why you're here to school me up in all this stuff.
Jordan Rasmussen is a Harvard grad, right?
Yeah.
And he ran as our representative in 2020. First time retiring representative was leaving, and he filled in that spot, and he won.
Talking about for the state legislature?
Yeah, for state legislative, state
Okay.
rep.
Jordan
And
Rasmussen.
Jordan Rasmussen, yeah.
Harvard grad.
Harvard grad.
Used to be a great endorsement if you came from Harvard.
Right.
You know what it tells me now?
Right.
I suspect you.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Yeah. And him and his family, they've been Democrats most of their life, but it's hard to get elected in Otter Tail County as a Democrat. So we'll just change our affiliation. We won't change necessarily our ideology. We'll just change our affiliation, and that way we can get in.
I think that's called a rhino,
Yes, I
right?
believe
Isn't that what that's the,
Right.
that was the original classic definition.
Yeah.
Just a Republican name,
Right.
right? Okay, that's Rasmussen.
Rasmussen.
So we got
Jordan
Anderson, Miracle, and Rasmussen. I'm trying to keep this cast of characters straight in my mind. Please go ahead.
So, in 2022, our state senator, Bill Ingebrigtsen, was retiring.
Okay.
So Jordan Rasmussen thought he would move up the food chain and go from being the rep after 2 years, or basically only been a year before he announced his candidacy for state senate. Well, in the meantime, we did some redistricting in the state at that time. So it turned out that another senator, Tori Westrom, who was in another district, they became intertwined, so they were in the same district. So
Okay.
now they were like, what are we going to do? What can we do? We have a sitting senator, and we have a representative who wants to fill this
A
open
Harvard
spot.
graduate.
A Harvard grad.
Oh, man. Okay. Got
So
it.
the two of them were communicating and just trying to decide what are we going to do, because they were kind of associates, not enemies at the time. And basically during that time frame, Jordan Rasmussen went to Tori Westrom and said, look, I've got Otter Tail County. I've got all the delegates. SD9, that's the Senate district we're in, that's made up of 5 counties, or 4.5. We have Otter Tail, Traverse, Grant, Wilkin, and a portion of Douglas County. And Otter Tail County being the creme de la creme, he went to him and said, I've got the delegates in Otter Tail County. You don't have a chance. You may as well pack up your bags, move on down the road. So that's what Tori Westrom did. He moved his residency across to another Senate district, and he ran. So because of the cheating, because of the adding of all these delegates,
That's the first time we've used the cheating word.
right.
And I just want to say for people who are listening, to add names.
Yeah.
Cheating is a nice way
Right.
to talk about it,
Yes.
right? That's,
Stealing.
if there was time for, I'm not going to say it because I'm not a lawyer. Go ahead.
Yeah. I'm not a lawyer, but I'm not afraid. They lied, they cheated, and they stole in order to get this endorsement.
For the Harvard grad.
For the Harvard grad, yes. So at our county convention then we vote for CD7 and state delegates to go forward. Well, they had a slate of delegates. We were allotted 35 delegates to go on. And because they had the numbers and they had a slate, they got all 35 of their people in, which then go on not only CD7 and state, but they're also part of the state executive committee for the next 2 years. So their cheating was done for twofold. One is to empower themselves, and the other one was to get their special candidate endorsed. So Jordan Rasmussen then a couple weeks later did get the endorsement. And Nathan Miller was running against him. He threw his hat in the ring at the last minute, like in the middle of March. And then they had a primary, and out of over 11,000 votes, I think he lost by 350 votes, something like that. Nathan Miller did. So now we have a dilemma. What are we going to do? Typically, if we don't agree with somebody's ideology 100%, we can sometimes plug our noses and go ahead and vote for that particular candidate. But because of the fact of them stealing in order to get this endorsement, and them not willing to, we asked for that they would do an audit on this selection of delegates, and they refused to do so.
When they, That would be MIN-GOP or the BPOU.
The BPOU, yeah,
Okay.
the executives.
Okay.
And we also appealed to the MNGOP, which David Hand was the chair at the time, and they wouldn't do anything either. He kind of washed his hands of it and said, we don't have any authority over what goes on at the local BPOU.
That's a great start to this story. It's going to get real interesting, isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, so you plugged your nose, but you couldn't do it.
Couldn't do it, no.
Couldn't do it on this Jordan Rasmussen issue.
Right.
Okay, please.
So then Nathan Miller decided, he gave them an ultimatum. He said, look, you guys will do an audit and find out which names were added, who was added, who did it, and then maybe there'd be some type of penalty, suspension or something for those people that were involved, that he would drop his name off and he would not run as a write-in. And he put this in several of the newspapers. He sent them letters, but they refused to do this audit because an audit would then reveal that they were corrupt. So they
The audit of the added delegates
and
post-caucus.
Post-caucus.
So what you were trying to do as citizen activists, you just wanted it to be transparent and fair.
Right.
You weren't trying to win.
Right.
You were just trying to make it sacred honor politics the way it needs to be, right?
Right.
Don't lie.
Right.
We're Republicans after all,
Right.
right? Okay, so he put in the newspaper, if you'll just, this is Nathan Miller, I will not run as a write-in, which of course could mean the Democrat would win because he would siphon off votes from the Harvard grad, right? He said, if you just would help us understand what happened transparently, I will withdraw in support. Well, he maybe didn't say he would support, but his withdrawal not to run as a write-in is kind of a support of Rasmussen. And they turned him down.
Right.
Because they didn't want to get outed for the chicanery that they were involved in.
Right.
Okay, what was the next chapter of the story?
Well, just to clarify, as far as that was a scare tactic that some of the rhinos used, that if he runs as a third party, he's going to elect a Democrat. That wouldn't happen in Otter Tail County because we're 70% plus Republican county. So if he was to have, even if Rasmussen and Miller would have split the votes evenly, there wouldn't have been enough room for the Democrat to win anyway because we're that Republican.
Hang on one second. Hey, Tanner, are you mic'd up today?
Yeah.
Can you look up that Alexander Hamilton quote from the last script and read it when you find it?
Oh, yeah.
Remember that quote about, I have a quote that I read on Tuesday night's podcast from a famous American, Alexander Hamilton, about this very issue. We'll bookmark it. He'll find it. He'll read it for us. But please continue.
Yeah. So anyway, so they decided against it because they knew that if they did an audit that they would reveal themselves as being corrupt. So then we went on with the write-in, which was a very uphill battle. He ended up losing, of course. Then we jumped to 2023, which is
so Rasmussen became a senator.
Senator, yeah.
Okay, so he got elected.
He got elected, yeah.
And the chicanery was not uncovered. And everybody moved forward. This is the 2022 cycle,
right?
Correct?
Correct.
Got it. I'm with you. Okay.
Well, I should add this too. So I was speaking with Vance Bachman. Vance Bachman was our deputy chair, and he became the chair in about December of last year, 2023 would have been.
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, he was the chair for roughly 14 months.
You got to help me here now because, you know, I'm getting older and things get fuzzy.
Right.
So we got 3 paid staffers sprinkled through this area of Michelle Bach, Fishbach.
Right.
Her people, they are her people that supported her in Otter Tail County on that.
And CD7.
Actually juiced the ball. They lied. They stole. They manipulated to put delegates into the system that would support Michelle Fishbach and their people. And all you asked for at that moment was, please, let's just be honest with each other.
Right.
You just asked for the truth.
Right.
And their answer was no.
No.
And because they knew that Rasmussen was going to win anyhow, because it's a 70% our district.
Right.
So they weren't really afraid. They had no motivation.
Right.
And the truth, of course, was no motivation for them because obviously they're liars.
Right.
Right?
Yeah.
And then he won. and you moved forward. Now, how did this thing escalate? Because now here comes the escalation, right?
Right. So the next year at our county convention, 8 days before that,
This is 2023 now.
2023. Yeah.
Okay.
So it would have been February 3rd of 2023. My wife and I got an email from Otter Tail County BPOU saying that the executive committee took a vote to remove or to suspend 33 duly elected delegates and alternates that would not be seated at the county convention that year.
And what was their reason? What did they give you a reason for this?
Their reason, it was stated, it wasn't, I don't think,
we
on
weren't in
the
good
email.
standards with
We weren't in good standings based on the fact that during the 2022 election cycle, we voted for what they called a third party candidate. They
Oh,
considered
you didn't support
Jordan
Endorsed.
Rasmussen.
the
Endorsed,
endorsed
yeah.
candidate.
Right.
So they took the rule that BPOU or people on the committee
Mhm.
must support the endorsed candidate. They drove that down into the delegate body, which
Right.
probably is something they could do.
No,
No, that's not in the
no,
Constitution.
they can't.
Because on the BPOU, if you're a BPOU chair, if you're sitting on that committee,
Mhm.
you can't work against the endorsed candidates.
Right.
But the delegates don't have that rule.
Correct.
We were precinct delegates at that time. We weren't like from the cities. We weren't city 7 delegates nor state delegates. We were
Okay.
precinct delegates.
So
So,
they-
that rule didn't apply to us.
And you're sure about that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yes.
how did you vet that out to be sure? I mean, you read the
We
Constitution.
read the Constitution.
Yes, yeah.
And it was clear in the Constitution.
Correct.
There was no clause in that Constitution that enforced upon you
Precinct delegates, no.
precinct delegates were not required to support
The endorsed.
the
Right.
endorsed
Yes.
candidates. Not anywhere in the Constitution.
No.
So they made it an implied responsibility.
Right.
And therefore they suspended your status.
Before the
Right.
convention.
For the convention.
And
Which-
why did they want to suspend it before the convention? What was their goal?
Well, that way they could get all their officers reelected that they wanted to. They could make changes to the Constitution.
Oh, that was the off year. They were going to
Yeah.
elect their
Yeah.
BPOU
officers.
officers, and they didn't want you as delegates having a say.
A voice, yeah.
Mr. Ben Anderson wanted to make sure he was going to continue on down the highway there, correct?
Correct.
And he knew if Merle and Carol rolled in with their posse,
And 33 of us were suspended.
and you guys were all in communication, the 33 of you,
Yes.
Yeah.
and you had now formed a political association amongst the delegates,
Yeah.
correct?
Right.
Yeah.
There was more of us than that. Those were the 33 that they picked out. What they did is they looked on your social media page. They took pictures of yard signs, of parades that
Donations.
you were involved with for Nathan Miller. And if they seen any of those things, you were working against the Republican Party. You're no longer in good standing. You will not be seated. So that was what they used as far as proof that you were not in good standing.
I was called a liberal one time.
Yeah.
They didn't want to call me a yuck, so they called me a
Oh,
liberal.
liberal.
I'm just making a statement anyhow. That's the way it goes. There's, resistance to people that have independent thinking.
Right.
So you got that letter, and what did you say? Carol, what did you say to Merle when you read that letter?
Well, it was strange because, one letter was sent to both of us, although we were married. We're different people. So they sent the same email. It wasn't a signed email, I believe.
No,
it
nobody
wasn't
signed it.
no one signed it. And it was like 8 days before. It had to be like 10 days before the convention. So, but we decided that we will attend the convention anyhow. So when we attended the convention, we weren't able to even like enter the door. We were just like barred.
This is politics now. This is the rough and tumble now.
Mhm.
You're into the rough and tumble part of it.
Yeah.
So what they did, and I want everybody to focus on this because, these people are going to cling to power and they're not going to let go of it. We're going to have to take the power from them,
Mhm.
which is not really what normal, regular, everyday people seek.
Mhm.
If you and I have a dispute,
Mm.
I'm going to want to talk it out with you.
Right.
And I'm going to expect that I'll be reasonable and you'll be reasonable. And we're going to find a middle ground and I'm going to listen to you and you're going to listen to me. And it's all going to be good. But these people, no, they're not listening to any kind of reason. They're in power.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to have to wrest it out of their hands.
Exactly.
So you went there attempting to enter to be seated as a delegate.
Mhm.
Mhm.
And the sergeant of arms met you at the door and said,
No.
You're not coming in.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
And because you're good Minnesotans, you didn't hit them in the head with a club,
Mm-hmm.
right? That might have
Right.
happened, let's say, in, I don't know, Romania
Right.
or in, some of these other countries. That could have been a throwdown.
Yeah,
Mhm.
well, we were in the hallway, we were praying, we were like worshiping. I mean, like we were singing and talking to each other, but after a while they called the cops, the sheriff on us.
Oh,
And
they did. So the constabulary showed up.
yeah, so they wanted us to look bad, so they called the sheriff on
Can I
us.
tell you
Yeah.
a secret dream of mine? Like you're out there praying and singing, and somebody just catches on fire.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
just,
Yeah.
they just,
Yeah.
because these people really, I mean, this is the part that, I said to myself, I have to be political now because I never wanted to be a politician, and I have to be likable, and I'm very likable, like you guys.
Mhm.
We like each other. I mean, I'm reasonable, but in politics, I'm a little bit of a firebrand, and I've been thinking about being likable and not saying things like this. But these people really are not good.
No.
No, they're
And
not.
so it's hard, so what we have to do is, I think, come up with a strategy. And of course, the Rice White strategy is just go medieval on these people,
Right.
and
And you
I'm,
need to be like loyal to truth. People that want to be likable, but at the same time they don't want to reveal what they stand for. And we need to be loyal for what we stand for and what is truth. And that those are things that we should never give up, truth and transparency, you know, and not go away against God's principles and against the Constitution. So that's what we have been seeing since we've gotten involved in 2022. They don't obey their own rules, so that just makes it worse.
as I like to say, the rules are for thee, but not for me.
Yes.
Okay, so now you've been removed. Basically, if you hadn't gone voluntarily, you'd been off to the clink because
Right.
the cops were there.
Right.
But you got in your car and drove away.
No, actually, the owner of the facility, where they had the convention, Thumper Pond and Ottertail, he had a room upstairs, a smaller room, and he allowed us. He said we could wait up there. He wasn't against us at all. He was very helpful and stuff. So he said, "Yeah, you guys can go wait upstairs." So several of us went up there and waited. I wanted to interject something earlier. I was talking about Vance Bachman, who became our chair. The fall of 2022, backing up a little bit in October, I was on social media and I wanted clarity because some people were saying that no names were added and others were saying names were added, but it's okay. So I wanted to get which one is it? So I asked this gentleman who became our chair a couple months after that, I said, which was it? A, they were added, but it's okay. Or B, they weren't added. He said, it's okay to add delegates as long as there's spots available. Those were his words.
And that's not
That's
constitutional
not
at all.
constitutional at all.
Right.
And then he goes, then he goes on to say that these are not elections; they're vetting processes. So in other words,
Oh, that fits in with my secret society
Yeah.
idea.
Right.
Yeah.
So you've got to pass through the gate.
right,
There's a gatekeeper there, not
Right.
your neighbors,
right,
not the people that showed up at caucus just without an agenda,
Yeah.
just they wanted to serve their community.
right,
No, in the party, they're saying, we're going to vet you,
Yes.
Mhm.
right?
right,
Oh, that's just,
right,
isn't that special?
Right.
That's great. Okay.
right. So he's not the smartest tool in the drawer. So he said that publicly, openly, that it's not a vetting process. So we go back to the 2023 convention. So we show up, we weren't seated. She's videotaping this, and it kind of went viral that we're standing out in the hallway that we're not allowed to go in. And then we did a couple interviews and stuff at that point. But yeah, they totally violated the Constitution. You see, if you're in your precinct, those are the people that can say, David Penn, I don't think you should be seated. Only your precinct. It isn't the BPOU. At that point, when you're a precinct delegate, you were elected by those people. They're the ones that can say whether or not you're in good standing, not the BPOU. Now, you talked about if you're on the committee, that's a different story. But just as a precinct delegate, they don't have the authority to do that.
Got it.
So they suspended us by an email, but they needed to make it official. So at the convention, a motion was made to suspend us. So it was official after we were suspended. We were outside already. Then they made a motion to suspend us at the
Was it a
convention.
close vote?
I don't know. We weren't inside, so
Which vote?
when they suspended us, remember? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we weren't allowed to go inside, but David Hand basically had talked to them and said, "You can't do that, what you're doing." So then they kinda switched gears a little bit. They say it wasn't the executive committee that suspended us.
It
It
was
was
the
the
convention
the
Yeah.
convention.
delegates.
The delegates had the credentialing aspect that did it, because that way they figured they were more legal. So they
Oh,
kinda
that was
switched.
under David Hand's personal
Advisement.
advice. Was he there?
No, we had a meeting with him the summer after that, and we were talking to him, and we asked him about that, and he said, "I told them they don't have the authority to do that. What you're going to have to do is bring it up at the convention itself." But we weren't seated. But they say if you're under question, you don't get a vote if you're the one under question. Well, I said they removed 33 people at one time and said they don't get a vote. Could you do 50%? What if you took 50% of the delegation, removed them, and then had the other 50% vote on it? You could do that, according to David Hand.
I just have a question. So, with the delegates that were added in those vacant seats after that night of voting,
Mhm.
so is it normal practice that in that night of voting, if they look and they see, okay, we have some vacant seats, are there any people that are running with no contest? Is it normal to fill them into those seats?
Not
It
after caucus night.
Not after
No,
caucus night at
no.
it
all.
it may be normal. That might have been practiced,
I
but it's
guess
not
I'm meaning
legal.
like on caucus night. Like if after all the votes are done, if they sat down, they said, okay, we still have this chair open.
No, no, no.
No,
They don't
That's
do
no.
that.
no,
It
no,
has to
no.
remain empty.
Because not
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
you now have removed the essential
Vote.
part
Okay.
of what it is to live in the United States of America, which is the people self-govern.
Well,
Now
right, but
you're
I'm
being
just trying
governed.
to I'm trying to make sure that like it isn't a normal practice if
It's
there's no
not normal.
contest. So
It's
there's
a
no excuse for
it's
this.
abnormal,
Yeah.
in my opinion, from what
Although we what we understood that they do it. They do it. It's something
It's
that
something that's been done,
that has
but
been
Yeah.
Well,
done.
on my board, where Alex Plekish, SD45,
yeah.
I looked up one day and there was these people on the board, and I said, "Where do these people come from?" And they, "Well, we appointed them." "Oh, you
Yeah.
mean we had a vote?"
Mhm.
I said, "I don't remember." I said, "Can you show me in the minutes of our meetings where we took a vote to appoint these people?"
Mhm.
Oh, we lost the notes.
Oh my gosh.
Right.
Because those
How
seats are on
convenient.
elected seats,
Yeah.
right? They're unelected.
Oh, by the
So
way, the
yeah.
person that did that, that's Alex Plekish's wife that did that. She was the chairman of our board, Denise Plekish, and there was a couple of people that just popped up out of nowhere. And they were very antagonistic towards Donald Trump,
Wow.
for example. And I said, How do these people get on the board? I don't remember. I don't remember taking a vote. Did I miss a meeting? I don't even remember missing a meeting. Please, and I was cool about it. Can you show me in the notes, the meeting notes, where these people we took a vote?
Vote.
Because you can appoint a board member, not a delegate, but a board member can be voted on
Mhm.
by the BPOU if there's a
Mhm.
vacant spot.
Right.
Because, like Merle was saying, it's sometimes hard to fill these spots because we don't have enough American citizens self-governing.
Mhm.
And I said, "Can you show?" "Oh, I don't. We lost the notes." We lost the notes.
Mhm.
I mean, what kind of a scam is that?
Right.
Am I supposed to be stupid? What's wrong with you people? See, well, I pissed everybody off because I just wanted things to also be fair, transparent, constitutional. So we're getting off the timeline
Right.
here. I want to go
Okay.
back to we just got done with the 23.
Right.
Okay, you were praying and
Yeah.
you were singing, and the
Mhm.
police came and you went up in the room, and what happened next?
Well, that was basically the end of the convention then. After the convention was over, we dispersed. But like I said, she videotaped what was going on, so it kind of went viral. And other, I said we're in SD9, Senate District 9, which contains 5 counties, 4 other ones besides Ottertail. Those 4 other BPOUs then wrote letters of condemnation condemning the Ottertail County BPOU for their actions. So you know what they were doing if other BPOUs looked at it and said, "That's not right, what you guys did." So Douglas, um, Traverse, Grant, and Wilkin, all 4 of those BPOUs took votes, passed resolutions condemning the actions of Ottertail County. So you know what they did was nefarious. That the fact that other BPOUs were willing to come out and say, That's not right. So
So
they
4 out of 5 counties condemned the
Right.
action
of Otter Tail.
of the people
In
that ran.
SD9, yeah,
Yeah,
our
the
Senate
SD9.
district. Yeah.
Got it.
Other one.
Okay.
Because they, by this cheating and stealing, they were also affected. Matter of fact, the whole state is affected. What goes on in one area is going to balloon out and affect have a ripple effect and affect it affected the state. It affected, good thing Royce White won by the percentage he won, but had Otter Tail been seated, that number would have only escalated and he would have won by even more had we all been seated in 2024. So they realized what Otter Tail County was doing, and they weren't happy with it either.
So when we would, like expose the corruption, well, they said like if you want to win the caucus, have majority of delegates, you need to show up in numbers at caucus. No, because we at the convention we didn't have the numbers to vote
Now we're
against
talking
them.
2024.
Yeah.
You're getting ready
Yeah.
for 20.
Yeah, but
This is
during this 2022 and 2023, that's what they were telling us. You guys need, if you want numbers, you want to win, you need to show up in numbers at caucus. So during this time, that's what we were doing.
how were you doing that? That's the part I want to
Well, we were
learn.
exposing what was going on in Otter Tail County and social media, talking to our friends or neighbors or whoever we can talk to, people from around the state. We were just telling them what transpired in Otter Tail County during 2 years. So when 2024 came, we showed up in numbers.
How did you get these numbers?
So
How did you do it? This is really, there must have been a process that you're involved with here, right?
Well, we're only a small part of Otter Tail County. My wife and I and a friend of ours, Eric Hansen, we've did a lot. We're called Caravan of Patriots. We have an organization. We started out doing caravans when Trump was running in 2020, and also we've did meet and greets for candidates. We've had debates and stuff. held
National
forums
speakers,
like that.
local and national speakers.
Yeah.
So you were out in the community,
Yeah.
Out in the community,
building a community.
right?
And the most important thing too is educating our community.
Yeah.
Educating them.
How influential was Carol in putting
Very
out-
much so.
Why do
She's
I
a
feel
social media
How do
guru.
I got this feeling that you're quiet, but I think you're effective. Because this is this is what I have to do here in SD 45. Everybody has been, I got corruption right in my own backyard. And it's corruption at an intergalactic level.
Yeah.
Yours is intergalactic too, but mine is big money corruption. And so I'm pissed about it. So I have to build my own network, my own community now.
Yeah.
And so what I'm hearing you say is you held community meetings, you had a special interest group, the Caravan of Patriots. So that's how you met people. You were having speakers come in, and and I'm sure sometimes only 4 or 5 people would show up, right?
And the most important, there's a national organization called Patriot Academy. So they
Rick
host
Green.
with Rick Green, and he's coming on propaganda, not commercial, on May 17th in Otter Tail County
He's from Detroit
oh
Lakes.
yeah, Detroit Lakes and Becker County for a Constitution conference. So they have like coaches all around the nation hosting classes for free about our founding documents, our founding fathers, about the Constitution, about how America was
And
founded.
that brings out interested citizens, and you have a chance to meet
Yes,
them,
exactly.
get them on a list,
Mhm.
cooperate with them.
Exactly.
Okay.
And when you educate people about what not only rights, about what their duties are, and if they know what they're losing, then it's something that wakes you up, and it encourages people to take a stand, because we're not doing this only for us but for the next generation. So when people are educated about our rights and our duties, it encourages them to do something. So how can they get in how could they have gotten involved, or how did they get involved at caucus? So we encourage people, we told them what was going on in our county, and they were like appalled, well, how can we help? Well,
So you offered basic, you advertised and brought citizens in to go through a training about the fundamental documents that
yes.
underlie our great
Yes.
republic.
Right.
And these courses are called Biblical Citizenship in Modern America. And it's for Christians, for Christians to get involved because we need the church to get involved. The church is a pillar of society. So if we don't have a church that's involved in culture and in government, when I said involved about what's going on, the church need to stand up against immorality and against a tyrannical government. That's the role of the church. So if the church is not preaching it, we won't be involved. The church won't be involved. When I say the church, I say the people, right? So, um, so that's one of the courses, and they have another courses which is just mainly the Constitution, the constitutional life. That's the name of the course, and they teach. And this course teaches about the Constitution. And
You
many
know what?
people they don't know about our Constitution. What are our First Amendment rights? They don't even know.
I had a group of people that have all run away now because now it's the hard work time. And I woke up this morning thinking, what are the special interest opportunities that I can create to bring citizens in? And I
Educating,
like that. But
education.
here's the buried lead here. This is why I wanted you all to come down to teach me
Mhm.
because I have to figure this out. Because right now it's me standing alone.
You remember when in history when they hid the Bible from people? People didn't know what God's word said. Now they want the population to be ignorant about the Constitution. If the population is ignorant about the Constitution, we don't know what laws our government is passing. So we're ignorant too, and we don't do anything. But if you educate our community, that's something that
Were these classes run through the church or
through through Patriot Academy, and you need a coach, like a leader. You sign up to be a coach. It's free to sign up as a coach, and the classes are free to sign up. The classes are free to host. There's no cost for anything to host these classes.
Okay, so if you're in Arkansas or you're in Georgia and you want to make a difference, what we're talking about is how do you get people together to create a community, to create a politically potent group of people that can depose the corrupt?
Let's learn. Let's teach. Let's learn. Let's be educated. Hey, do you want that it starts even at your home in your home at your homes with your family. Hey, let's study. Let's look. Let's watch a class of the Constitution or founding
Hey,
documents.
Mr. Producer, we
Yeah.
got some good clips in this part, don't we?
Oh yeah.
This is awesome.
Yeah, that man's got a good wife.
That's
Yeah. Yeah.
You see, there
Yeah.
you go. And I have a good husband
Amen.
too.
Amen.
Yeah, so education.
Yeah.
And that's what they're doing in schools on educating our kids. So we need to start educating our
Yeah.
people about our founding documents and our history, the biblical foundation of America.
the rhinos are watching this and they're shaking in their boots right now. They're shaking because
Start with education.
they have woken the sleeping giant. Just slumbering into action now. Okay, so now we're in 23 heading to 24. What's next?
I want to add on to her thing. So, not only are the schools failing, but so also are the churches because so many Christians feel like they don't have a duty. Matter of fact, they should stay out of politics. Pastors are teaching their
They're
parishioners
citizens
that.
of heaven. I get it.
Yeah, and that is totally wrong. When people go through those classes and they see our founding fathers, what they sacrificed to give us what we have, there's a sense of patriotism and duty that's instilled in these people. So once they're there at the end of these classes, we always make sure to say to them, look, if you're showing up in November to vote, you're too late. You are too late because what you're getting is you're getting candidates that have been handpicked for you that's part of the uniparty. So if you don't get involved in the process, go to your caucus, become delegates, go on to conventions, and actually have a voice in who those candidates are, you're going to continue to lose. We're going to continue to lose because simply pulling the lever for the R is not the way to victory. We have to get good candidates who are actually constitutionalists in order to get them elected.
Hey, Professor Penn, and for us, we just don't want delegates. We want good delegates. And
Educated.
educated delegates. When we have educated delegates, they won't be content with any candidate. They will choose good candidates. So we want good delegates so they will know how to choose their candidates. So
Yeah.
You guys are. I had this sense that I was gonna. It's always a risk when you invite people in. Are they going to be good on camera? Are they going to be articulate? Do they have something to say? Now, I know there's a lot of people all over the country going, this is kind of down in the weeds. Actually, this is one of the most important podcasts I've ever been involved in because we're talking about how to become politically effective
Mhm.
in our local neighborhoods.
Right.
And I'm going to say again, I wanted to talk to you because I have to do that myself. And I'm scratching my head going, man, it's just me. But see, you can hook me up with this
Yes, yes.
training
I
academy.
will,
That'd be
yes.
really,
Well, you should come down to meet the founder, Rick
Rick Green.
Green. He's going to be on May 17th.
maybe he wants to come down to the studio and do a podcast with me.
Oh, yeah.
There's an
Well,
idea. It's an idea, just an idea.
You know, he has his own podcast. You heard of David Barton?
I have
David
heard it.
Original Intent. He's one of the most
wall
known
builders.
scholars on the Constitution. He's got all these documents.
Yeah, I've
from
seen
the-
his. I've seen his stuff. Yeah,
But
Yeah.
I got to get this story. We're going to run out of time.
Sure.
Let's keep
Okay, yeah.
cranking because
So-
I want to get to the real.
Okay.
I want to get to the fireworks of this thing.
Okay,
all right.
yeah.
So after we did all this recruiting and got all these people, the establishment, the Otter Tail County BPOU execs, they knew it was coming. What are we going to do now? These guys have got numbers. How are we going to prevent them from taking over? How are we going to maintain power? So what they did is they came up with some schemes. For instance, to get ready to prepare for the 2024 caucuses.
Are we going to be talking about a form?
Yes, we're going to be
Oh,
talking about a form.
I have information on these forms you've never heard, but please continue.
Yeah. So what are we going to do? So I imagine they're sitting in the back room going, what can we do? Well, number one, Otter Tail County, like I said, is a big county, both population-wise and mass size-wise. So typically in the past, they've had 7 convening location sites for people to meet at
caucus.
At caucuses, yeah. And in 2022, they had 5. They reduced 2 of them. Well, in 2024, they reduced it down to only 2. Fergus Falls and Perm, which are on opposite sides of the county. And so all these people, there was probably, 600 people, 650, something like
in
that,
2 locations.
met at these 2 locations. So it was chaos and confusion, which worked to their advantage. So they wanted to do that. Not only that, but I talked about Tommy Miracle earlier, who is actually the one that
Back to Tommy Miracle.
He's the ringleader. He might not be the chair, but he's the ringleader. Him and his son, Harry Miracle, between the 2 of them, they were able to be the convening location conveners at both these 2 sites.
Tommy and Harry were
Tommy
the
and Harry
conveners.
were the
Yeah.
conveners.
Okay.
We were in Perm. Harry Miracle was our convener. When we, after they did the preliminaries, one of the things that was supposed to be on the skit, one of the things on the agenda was you open up the floor to appoint or elect a permanent convener. Well, they skipped over that part so that he could continue on. Well, somebody stood up and made a nomination to open up the floor to that, and he resisted. Said, "No, I've been trained for this. I was appointed by the BPOU. I'll continue. We're almost done here. We're almost done. I'm going to do my job, finish up, and then I'm going to go sit down." So he resisted that. Well, there was a lawyer in the group, in the crowd, who said, "If you don't allow this to go forward, you're breaking state statute. You're supposed to open up the floor to that." So he threw his arms up in the air and said, "Fine, we'll take a vote." And then somebody nominated Tammy Berry, who was a former BPOU chair. She was one of the Grassroots people. And we took a vote, and it was 183 to 39.
39, something like that.
That's how much we outnumbered them at the Perm location. They attempted to do the same thing at the Fergus Falls location, but Harry Miracle was not having it. He refused to open up the floor for that. And a couple days later, he ended up resigning from the BPOU because he knew he was breaking state
That wasn't Harry. That was Tommy.
Tommy was in Perm. He did open up the floor.
Oh, okay. Tommy opened it up. Was the son, Harry.
Harry refused.
That he
Fergus
refused.
Falls.
Okay, got it.
And a couple days later, he resigned from the BPOU. Why? I don't know. But I think it could have been fear. He knows he violated the Constitution or the state statute by not doing so. So that was one of the nefarious. And the reason that we did that,
And was there a lot of screaming and hollering and jostling when this was going on?
there was.
Got a little bit rough around the edges, didn't it?
Did.
Yeah.
Yeah, they said no videotaping, no audio or videotaping. Well, somebody had had their camera out and was recording it, and one of the older guys, he's 80 years old, he's been in the BPOU forever, he's establishment guy, walked over there. You could see him walking over. The guy's filming, walking over and swatted and hit his hand and knocked the phone, and then you could see the film going like this. So, and these are people that usually accuse us of being violent, and they're the violent people that do stuff like that.
You want to talk about the form,
Yeah.
registration form?
So the reason that we wanted to get a new chair in there is because there were 2 forms that we had. We had one in backup, and that was prescribed by the MNGOP. Otter Tail County created their own registration form, and on that registration form, there was a commitment, a pledge,
A loyalty oath.
a loyalty oath. Yeah, on that. So our first order of business was to get rid of those and use the MNGOP ones, the ones that everybody else was using throughout the county. Well, in the meantime, Tommy Miracle was on the phone with Anna Matthews. You know Anna Matthews, the executive director
Yes, I do.
of the MNGOP, and was talking to her. Well, after a brief conversation, Tommy Miracle went up to the platform and handed it to Tammy Berry, who was now presiding over the caucus. And after a short conversation, she said, we can't use these forms. We have to use their forms, which was illegal. Now, I'm reading something from the Minnesota Constitution. It says this in regards to membership and dues. Section 1 says membership. The membership of the party shall be composed of all citizens of the state of Minnesota who desire to support the objectives of the party. That would be all of us. We support that. And then section 3 writes, it says, nothing in this Constitution shall be construed to deny or abridge the rights of any voter to participate in any party caucus, primary, or convention where is entitled by law to participate. Well, that's pretty simple. And then Article 4, delegation power, says the form of enrollment, this is where we're into it, shall be prescribed by the state executive committee and shall be uniform throughout the state. No qualification for membership shall be imposed except as provided by this Constitution. Opportunity for enrollment shall be open at all times to all voters who are eligible for membership under Article 2, which I had previously read what membership is. So if you go to your caucus to register, that form should be the same as my form that I signed. They should be uniform throughout the state. They weren't. And nobody, not the CD7, not the MNGOP, they allowed this to go forward. They didn't say anything, and I brought it up time after time.
Because you had a special form.
That we had a special form, and they were okay with that.
Do you know where that form came from?
It was created by the Otter Tail County BPOU.
You sure about that?
Well, it said on there, one of the condition was that you have to agree that the Otter Tail County bylaws were in fact, the current acting documents.
Did the MNGOP form have a loyalty oath on it too?
No.
And the reason why we didn't sign it was because in 2023, after we were suspended, they were able to pass that constitution when after 33 of us were suspended. So they had the numbers that were required to approve the new constitution.
There's a lawyer that works for a very liberal law firm.
Mm-hmm.
He's a leftist law firm. His name's Joshua Colburn, and he does a lot of legal things from NGOP. And I was at a meeting, and he proposed a form that had a loyalty oath at this meeting that I was at. And I read the form, and I said, Joshua, there are people that won't sign this the way you've written it. What are you going to do if they don't sign it and they're a delegate? Are you going to unseat, not let them be seated at convention? And he said, well, I'll check with Anna Matthews. And Anna Matthews promised that if people didn't sign it, they would not be denied status. And there was a really quite a hubbub about this form that I participated in. There was a beautiful, really a beautiful older woman named Norma Frederick. She's probably been in the party since Ronald Reagan's period of time. She's in her 80s, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And she's spry. She still drives. We don't agree politically, but I always respected her for her service. And I'm sure she doesn't like me politically, but on a personal basis, we got along just fine.
Mm-hmm.
And Norma said, I wrote this form decades ago. We can't have loyalty oaths. We want to have a big tent. We want as many people coming in as we can. And Joshua got up and towered over her and started bullying her. And he's a big dude.
Oh my gosh.
And I said, Joshua, you better sit down. We are no longer talking political. This is a 90-pound woman you're screaming at. Stop.
Mm-hmm.
So this thing with this loyalty oath thing, This was banging around down here in CD3 where, that's where things get thought up, right?
Mhm.
Because, where's the headquarters of MnGOP? It's in CD3, right?
Right.
Where does David hang out? CD3. So I watched this thing I watched the setup for this thing. I don't know what form you were asked to sign,
Mhm.
but I opposed the loyalty oath myself, and it got quite heated about this issue. And we were told that Anna Matthews herself had committed that if someone didn't sign the form, it was all good. Don't worry about it. That's what, and I said, well, you know what? I don't believe this. You're going to use these forms.
Mhm.
We're going to have delegates showing up at convention, and they won't be seated because they didn't sign this form.
Right.
What happened? Didn't something like that happen?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Right.
So Joshua, if you're listening, you go bite a hog in the ass, okay? Because tell the rest of this story now. What happened?
Okay. So besides the two things I already mentioned that they did to try and keep us from going forward, is there's a PCRC form, which are supposed to be on the tables of each precinct. So if you're a precinct chair, after you finish voting for your delegates and alternates, and you write all their names down, this PCRC form is supposed to be signed by you.
And the convener.
Actually, that's not state statute, but that was on the form. On the form had the convener location. The convener location chair was supposed to sign it. That's not constitutional, because is a convener chair sitting at your precinct? Is he at this one? Is he at all 92 precincts to be able to certify that those were the people that got elected? No, but that's what these forms said. But irregardless, these forms were not placed on each of the precinct table. I was the chair of City of Perm Township. I didn't have access to this PCRC form. So at the end of the night, the appointed convener chair and the secretary, along with the secretary of the BPOU, the three of them got together and they filled out these PCRC forms based on the sign-in sheets. Because on the sign-in sheets, you listed who won the delegate spots and who were the alternates. So they did that, and that was part of Hans' contention why our caucus was null and void, because they weren't signed by we didn't have access to it. But that was planned. That was intentional to keep us from going forward. Excuse me.
So they used paperwork
Mhm.
intentionally
Mhm.
to control the process.
Exactly.
Right. I fought that
Yeah.
where I was.
Yeah.
And this is just all part and parcel with the party being a private secret society.
Yeah.
I mean, they just don't want was it hard for you two to recognize that it's not the People's Party? Because
Right.
it was for me.
Right.
It still is. Like,
Yeah.
wow, you people are running your own game here.
They
Yeah,
are.
we
It-
found out about that in 2022.
Mhm.
As Merle mentioned, we were, especially Merle, in national politics, but not at local level. So when we went to our first convention, a county convention, and then we saw, how the dispute was to reveal about the delegates that were added. I said, "Are we in a Republican convention or are we a Democrat
I tell
convention?"
people now, I mean, I look back on this, just me sharing with you as friends. Now we're getting to be friends because I love this story, right? This is we get into these, my audience loves it. We get into all kinds of geopolitical stuff, but everything is about what happens in our neighborhood. There's all this focus on Donald Trump. I got this guy, Rob, friend of mine, every day texting me about Donald Trump. I haven't watched Trump in 3 months
Mhm.
because I'm focused on what's happening in my backyard. That is a psyop of the highest order.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Pay attention to the federal government. No, it's in our backyard.
yeah,
And look at how much effort has been done to keep the backyard from functioning just fairly,
yeah.
just in a fair fashion. But I went into the party after 2020 election, and I didn't know any of this stuff. I thought it was, well, I thought Republicans were all pretty aligned,
Yeah, that's
actually.
like
Yeah.
us. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I didn't recognize that there was this cohort that controlled the party that are not Republicans at all.
Right.
They're just in it for the game.
Yeah.
And if I was to go in, I'm saying this if you're listening and you're hanging in there, and thank you for hanging in there. If you get involved in politics, if I started today, I would not let anybody know what I really politically believe.
Right.
I would just show up and vote.
Right.
And when there's 80 people in a room voting, they don't have time to really get a beat on anybody because it's yay and nay. So a lot of times it's a voice vote.
Mm-hmm.
So I brought all this heat on myself. And if you're new and you want to get involved in politics, you don't need to do that anymore. We've already broken through the line. Now we just need numbers. We need lots of people. We've already had people like, Carol and Merle come in and be the shock troops to take the beach. We just need the next wave of people to come in behind us and back up the play. You don't have to put your ass on the line. You just got to show up and vote.
Mm-hmm.
That's it. Anyhow, so they used those forms, and
Mhm.
what happened next?
So some of the people at caucus took these forms. Some of them threw away and they used the MNGOP form. Some of them crossed out where the agreement with the Otter Tail County bylaws, crossed that out. Some wrote under duress under their signature, different things like that. So a couple days later, the MNGOP, the CD7, Otter Tail all got together at a meeting. Said, what are we going to do? So they came up with a conclusion. David Hans canceled, called our caucus null and void, and they would go forward using the 2022 delegates going forward. Well, the state executives.
We're not got to get this right.
Sure.
What happened in 2022?
2024.
But in 2022, you got blocked also, right?
Right.
So now they blocked you again.
Yes, they blocked again. In 23 and now 24.
So what happened was Hans said you need numbers.
Mm-hmm.
We
You
had
went out and got the numbers,
Yeah.
and they said, whoop, rug out from underneath you, and you're on your ass again.
Yeah.
Correct?
Correct.
Okay. And now we're going to, and I want to fast forward it. You came down to the state convention, right? Was there anything in between there we need to talk about?
Yeah, our county
CD7.
and our county convention. Remember, we couldn't have a county convention.
Yeah, so they canceled that. But our Constitution says that the authority vests in the delegates and the alternates. We are the governance. That's what the word is, governance. We're the governance. So we ended up calling a convention ourselves amongst the people, the majority of the people. And we called in Wendy Phillips.
You called your own convention.
Yeah.
We called
Oh,
our
I
own
remember
convention.
this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That cost Wendy her
Yeah.
role.
Yeah.
We spoke with Wendy. Wendy is a patriot. We love her to death. She's awesome. She said, when I called her and asked her if she would do this, her answer wasn't what I had hoped for, but it was what I loved. It was better than what I hoped for. She didn't say yes. She said, I'm going to pray about it and seek God. And then she did, and she called us back a couple weeks later. Anyway, she knew that by doing this, she was putting her own
path got blocked.
Yeah, and she knew that was probably coming, but she did that anyway. I mean,
So you
that's
held
the
your
definition of a patriot.
You
right
held
there.
your own convention.
Yeah.
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 Okay.
Yeah.
So there was two conventions.
No,
No.
they canceled.
They canceled.
They canceled
Yeah.
the convention. The BPLU executive committee did not call a convention that year.
How can they do that?
They can.
They can do whatever they want. The
Well,
Constitution.
they
is,
shouldn't.
the Constitution is just a bunch of suggestions. You don't have to follow it.
Yeah.
Great.
Why bother with the Constitution?
Yeah, the
So you-
Constitution says you have to have an annual BPLU convention. It's mandatory.
It
But yet
is
they-
mandatory.
But yet they cancel it. So we called our own.
Great.
And
So
we elected delegates to go forward, CD7. And of course, the state didn't recognize it. But we went forward at the CD7 convention that year, which was in Morton, Minnesota,
this is in 2024,
2024.
Yeah.
in the lead up to the state convention.
Lead up to state. So we went down there and we had people within the CD7 making motions on our behalf because we weren't allowed to go in, of course. And Brett Bussman was one of them. Brett Bussman had made a motion on the floor to seat the 2024 delegates and remove the 2022 delegates. Well, at that point, when he made that motion, Anna Matthews went to the microphone and she threatened that the CD7 was going to be canceled if this motion went forward. Well, when the motion went forward, there was a voice vote taken and we would have won. They would have seated the 2024s, had a vote. Somebody called for division. And at that point, Anna Matthews threatened, and so did Jonathan Aniston, who was the parliamentarian for the CD7.
Jonathan Aniston, guess what? Where does he come from? SD 45.
Yeah.
He's I know him well.
Yeah.
Great. Glad to know he had his sword in the blood.
Yeah.
That's very helpful.
Right.
Thank you.
Yes.
Go ahead.
So they both threatened to that. Well, a sitting senator then whispered in Bussman's ear to pull back that motion, which they did. Had they went forward with it, I believe that we would have been seated at that point. but because of the fear of canceling the thing, and they wanted to make sure they thought they would be helping Steve Boyd get the endorsement if we went forward. They were scared that if we went forward with this and they canceled it, that wouldn't happen. He didn't end up getting the endorsement anyway. But
Nor him nor
Fishbach.
yeah,
No,
there was
nobody
no
won the
endorsement,
endorsement
yeah.
that year. So that brings us then to the state where you were at, where we met you the first time at state convention 2024. The same thing happened. People were making motions for us.
Before the rules were adopted,
Yeah.
there was motions being made
Mhm.
to address this issue.
Mhm.
Correct.
And I'm going to tell you, I was sitting up front
Mhm.
with my delegation. We were at the front of the room.
Mhm.
And I was, I'm pretty influential at that time. I mean,
Mhm.
now I'm nobody, but at that time I was influential, and I was urging my delegation to pay attention to this because people didn't know what was going on.
Mhm.
I knew because we'd already been in touch, right?
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then the same thing happened.
Mhm.
And I don't want to, this is going to sound awful, but it's what happened.
Mhm.
All of a sudden, there's a lot of, I really question if I can say this. First of all, Jonathan Anisted's sitting right there with me, right? So there's a mixed delegation. A lot of women are involved and a lot of men are involved. It's like 50-50. We've got a liberated society and the women are involved in politics, and I think that's great.
Mhm.
But then women that I know started saying, David, you got to stop. I go, why do I got to stop? They're going to cancel the convention. We've been told that if we continue this rules fight, you got to back off. They're going to cancel this convention.
Mhm.
They're going to cancel it. They're going to cancel it. And all these people, and they weren't people, it was the women in the SD45 delegation,
Mhm.
were coming to me and pressuring me to back off. I said, look, let them cancel it.
Mhm.
Mhm.
We have to deal with this issue.
Right.
But they spread that same rumor
Fear.
out.
Yeah.
The exact same thing. And there was, and I mean, I hate to say it like this, but my gosh, the women are more community organizers, more friendly, more
Mhm.
connected.
Yeah.
I don't care if anybody likes me, and I don't need any friends.
Right.
I'm not in it for community.
Mhm.
I'm in it for politics.
Mhm.
So they formed a group right up in front, and they just said, we got to stop this right now. So the rules got adopted. And that ended what could have been the fight
Mhm.
before the rules were adopted, if I remember this correctly, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
Do you remember it like I remember it?
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, go ahead. I don't have any objections to anything you just said.
Well, I'm just saying the fight had to happen to get
Right.
you seated
Yeah.
before the rules were adopted.
Mhm.
And we had that awful Stanek running the thing. He was a
Mhm.
tyrant.
He
Yep,
was, yeah.
yep.
And then they came up with some kind of bizarre psychological process
Mhm.
where you're going to get to tell your story.
Yeah.
Instead of actually politically potent decision, it
Mhm.
was like a therapy session,
Right.
right?
Right.
Do I remember correctly?
Mhm.
Okay,
Right.
go ahead.
Yeah, so they were making all kinds of motions, and they kept delaying. We'll deal with it later. We'll deal with it later. They kept pushing it down the road. Finally, they were dealing with it, and some of the people that were making motions up front came and got me and said they're going to allow you to speak. So I walked forward up there. I wasn't a seated delegate. I was an alternate who wasn't seated either because I was in bad standing. But anyway, when I went up front to speak on it, Anna Matthews, Tiffany Lymaster, who's the deputy chair of CD7, and another gal, they came up there and they were mad. They were fit to be tied. You get out of here. You don't have one of these badges. I said, can you get me one? Oh, and that only aggravated them worse. So they made me leave. So I walked back to the thing, and then I text Nathan Miller and asked him if he could go up and speak on behalf of Otter Tail County. So Nathan Miller and Stephanie Blomberg went up there and they spoke on behalf of Otter Tail County. And we had the crowd. The crowd was on our side. They understood what was going on. Before that, a lot of people were going, what's going on in Otter Tail? But they were able to understand. Then, of course, Tiffany and Vance Bachman, who was our chair, they went up and they told their side of the story. Well, nobody believed what they were saying. So had a vote been taken, we would have won. But Stanek refused to allow a vote to go forward. We just said we'd hear it. Nobody said anything about taking a vote after. If you remember that, they didn't do a vote. We would have been seated at that point too, but they just.
I know what I remember.
from that.
This is like you have these moments in your life. You think, okay, here's a great movie scene.
Mm-hmm.
You guys are sitting in the back half of the room because you can't come up front with the delegates, and all this went on. And I walked back and stood with you.
Yeah.
And I thought the entire convention was going to get up and walk back with me, like Spartacus, the
Yeah.
movie
Oh, yeah.
Spartacus. I am
Yeah.
Spartacus,
Oh my
right?
gosh, yeah.
And I'm standing there, and nobody got up.
Right.
But I'll tell you, when Royce won,
Yeah. That was
he
good.
invited you guys up on the stage with
That was
him.
awesome.
Wasn't that great?
Yeah,
That
that
was
was awesome. Yeah.
And
He knew. He didn't know the whole story, but he knew what the establishment was doing.
well, he could smell injustice, and boy,
Yeah.
were they unjust to him.
Right.
I mean, he got a good dose of. He got the endorsement on the first round of voting, and I remember Alex Plekish was standing on my right side with a Royce White for Senate sign, yay, screaming. I looked at myself. I said, "Shh, Alex, you really want to be good at this, don't you?" Because I know Alex was not a Royce White guy.
Oh
Right.
my gosh.
And then, within a week, Michelle Benson and Paul Gazelka and Norm Coleman and Rudy Boschwitz and Kendall Qualls, they all came out and endorsed Ukraine Joe Frazier.
Yeah.
And it just shows that the establishment is only going to honor the citizens that are delegates who endorse candidates if they get the outcome that they want.
Right.
If it's not what they want, they're going to kick the legs out from whoever comes along. That was Mary Franson, this one representative. She's ripping on Royce White last night.
Yeah.
I hope these people grossly underestimate where the citizens are at, because I, as a citizen, I had enough of this now.
Mm-hmm.
So I hope that my indignation spreads,
Mm-hmm.
and your indignation, and so then what happened next? Because it has a better ending.
Mhm.
Not a perfect ending, but it has a good ending, doesn't it?
Somewhat, yeah. We're still in the fight.
Okay,
But-
so let's go forward. Let's go forward.
Okay. So after the state convention, and then we got we elected 10 district chairs to be part of the executive committee in our own convention we had in 2024. Well, there was a struggle because the former BPOU thought they were still in charge, so they ended up calling a Zoom meeting. Well, we responded to that by sending out a letter of our own saying that they were illegitimate, that their reign ended after the 2024 caucus delegates were seated, that they're no longer in power. Well, David Hand got caught wind of that, and the 5 of us chairs that signed that letter all got cease and desist letters from Reed LeBeau, the lawyer for the MNGOP, saying that we were out of line and that we can't even use the name Republican anymore. So
now we're going right to the threshold of legal.
right?
Okay.
And so then at the end of last year, the day before David Hand's reign ended, Otter Tail County had sent them a request to not recertify the Otter Tail County BPOU. So it didn't happen. Plekish then got seated the next day, and he rescinded that request to not recertify Otter Tail County. So Alex Plekish then got involved, and he was trying to convince CD7 or the MNGOP state executives to call a convention. I believe a lot of it was for show, not a big supporter. Like I was saying earlier, Alex Plekish needs a backbone. He's what I call a peacekeeper, not a peacemaker, in which he's trying to placate to both sides. He's got the money men on this side, and he's got the grassroots on this side. And if you try and play in the middle of the road, you're going to get ran over. So he needs to take a side. Which side is he on?
I know what side he's on.
Yeah.
He's not on the side of the people.
No.
Because I sat with him for 2 years on a board. I know him very, very well.
Right.
Alex is a politician.
Right.
I mean, he's very much a politician.
Right.
I'm not.
I
I just
see that.
tell you what I think. Okay, if we don't agree, fine. Doesn't mean we have to fight each other. Alex called me a mutineer.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I was actually labeled by him as a mutineer.
Right.
I called him on my podcast, Mr. We Don't Do That Here,
Right.
because I was trying to talk about some political issues in our BPOU meeting, and he said, "We don't do that here." I go, "What am I supposed to do? Do what we tell you to do." You know what?
Mm-hmm.
That's not the way I roll there, partner.
Yeah.
I'm here to do politics. Well, see, what happened to me was he made sure I got drummed out because I don't agree with him. Alex Plekish is a war hawk, warmongering, uni-party
Yes.
of the highest order. And, hey, Alex, you don't like it? I know you're watching. You can change, brother.
Yes.
You don't have to send my children to die in the Ukraine.
Right.
I don't want my kids to die there.
Mhm.
I know you served in the Marines, and I respect it.
Mhm.
I just don't want my kids to have to do it.
Right.
Please don't condemn my children to death.
Yeah.
And that's the fight we're having in the party, for example. And what are you bringing forward? I mean, we're not even talking about your politics.
Mhm.
They're just keeping you out. Why? Because you're not Michelle Fischbach supporters? Was that the deal? I mean, why
He
did
endorsed Michelle Fischbach.
he sent out
Already.
a letter.
Yeah.
I get it.
Yeah.
He sends out a letter really circumventing the whole citizen process
Right.
of being involved in politics.
Right.
He has a predetermined outcome for CD7, Michelle Fischbach.
Right.
You know, Alex, you want to run it this way? Enjoy the rest of your reign. The people are coming. But please, so
Yeah.
what happens next?
So I was just going to say this. A lot of grassroots people who I love, who are on our team, they don't have a lot of discernment. Discernment is very much lacking in the grassroots. Alex Plekish is not on our side. He is like you say, he's part of the Uniparty people. But anyway, so what happened next is after they agreed to do Otter Tail County BPOU convention this year, they still had stipulations that they suspended 62
62, I guess, yeah.
62 people from attending the Otter Tail County BPOU convention this year in 2025 for violations of those
When
forms.
you say they, who's they?
Otter Tail County BPOU, CD7, along with the state executive committee.
And this was when Alex Plekish was already the chair of the committee.
Yeah.
Correct.
Great. Want to make it clear for everybody what's going on.
Yeah.
Let's continue.
So Tiffany Lymaster, CD7, was supposed to run this convention.
Just what's the proper pronunciation of
Tiffany Lesmaster, not
Not.
Yeah.
Not
No.
her name.
KNOT.
OTT, yeah, not.
So
Oh, she has a hyphenated name.
yes,
Yeah.
Oh, that's wonderful.
right,
And you call her Lie Master.
right, because she's done nothing but lie about Otter Tail County
I like that.
for the last 2
Okay.
years. Matter of
It's
fact,
a
at the
nickname.
state convention, she was up there with the Otter Tail County BPOU chair lying about us. At the CD7, she went up. So she's up front on the stage talking about Otter Tail, and she's not part of Otter Tail. But anyway, so she was in charge of running all this, and there were 62 people who were not going to get invitations. Either you got an invitation, say, expect a call from the CDC for the Otter Tail County BPOU convention, or you will not be getting one. Well, I was one of them. 5 of us that signed that letter, the district chairs weren't, plus several others who either wrote under duress, crossed something out on the form, whatever. They were not allowed to go in there, of course. And this was put together by the CD7 Otter Tail County BPOU, and it was approved by the state executive committee. Remember the form I read earlier about being membership, how it should not, and the forms it should be? Yet they all went along with this form. It's okay that they even added to the form. In the original form, it had the bylaws of the Otter Tail County. Now it says you must agree that the 2023 Otter Tail County Constitution and bylaws are the current acting documents in Otter Tail County. So they made you sign this pledge, even going to this year's convention, which I refused to do because I would be lying. I would be violating my conscience by signing that because I don't agree with it. But yet all of these entities forced that upon us. So then we had our county convention. We had numbers there. So those 62 of us that were excommunicated, so to speak, not allowed to come, they took a vote on the floor, and we were able to get seated then at our county convention.
Oh, progress.
Progress, which was March 22nd.
The people have spoken.
The people have spoken.
Oh, that's beautiful.
Right.
That's heartwarming for me.
Yeah.
I actually feel like that made a feeling in my heart, actually.
It did.
I mean, congratulations. The tenacity, the perseverance. There's a Chinese word, jine.
Yeah.
It means endurance. You endured.
Right.
That takes true faith to do that. Go ahead.
So again, Jonathan Aniston was our chair.
Oh, again.
Yeah,
He was our chair
Again.
for that convention.
He's very political, isn't he? Smooth. He's so smooth.
Alex Plekish was present. He was sitting up front.
That's great.
And Tiffany Leismaster Knott was also there running the show. So they saw what you talked about, the feeling of patriotism. People come up and gave testimonies crying about how they've wanted to be involved and they've been shut out. We sang God Bless America at the end. It was very moving, touching moment. Yet these people, at the end of the day, so because Otter Tail County BPOU was diminishing, they have nobody left. The former guard I'm talking about, they're diminishing.
They ran away.
They ran away. They tried to have the Otter Tail County decertified because on the way out the door, they may as well burn the building down before they leave. But anyway, so they were willing to give us the Otter Tail, the officers, the 4 officers, the chair, deputy chair, secretary, and treasurer, to be voted on that day. They were willing to allow us to make constitutional changes.
State
They gave
Central.
us the state central delegates, the 5 district chairs and stuff. But there's one thing that they wouldn't release, and that was they wanted to use the 2022s to go forward at the CD7 convention.
Wasn't that special?
That was special. So they were giving us these things, but they were
But the real action
was for that.
the
That was
delegate
fun.
part, the part that makes you the most important person in the room.
Right.
Who gets endorsed?
Yeah.
Right?
Right.
And off you went.
And so then we made constitutional changes at our county convention to be able to elect these in odd numbered years because the Constitution allows for an even number of years. We made those changes. We had a slate of delegates that we elected last year at our county convention, and we just put those forward and we voted. And I think it was unanimous that we voted those
Your
forward.
slate of delegates to go
Yeah.
to the CD7,
CD7.
which is
The-
a couple
the
months
follow-
later.
Yeah.
No, the following week.
The following
Oh,
week, it
March
was.
22nd was our convention. March 29th, the next week, was in Detroit Lakes at Becker County, was our CD7 convention.
And I would have been there,
Mhm.
but I was down in CD2, I think, or CD1 at a convention.
Right.
So I actually had a reporter in the room, and as this thing was going on, I was getting these text messages constantly. So I was there with you. But please tell the audience what happened.
So then at the end of our county convention, there was another motion made that these delegates would be accepted by the CD7 and by the state. Well, Jonathan Aniston and Chair Plekish had nothing to do with that. They weren't going to endorse what we had just done. So they weren't accepting of that. So that was on a Saturday. 2 days later, on Monday night, CD7 got together with their executive committees, and they voted against accepting of our new delegation of CD7 delegates. I think one person out of the crew voted in our favor. All the rest of them voted against it. A couple days later, I think it was either Wednesday or Thursday, the state executives got together and they also voted not to accept our slate of delegates that we just elected. So we ended up then the following Saturday going to Becker County to the CD7 convention, and the 2022s were seated, and some alternates, which were grassroots people, because they were allotted 35, but they could only muster 12 people. They were allotted 35, and all that they had left in their array of corrupt individuals was, well, not all of them were corrupt, but 12 people carry over from 2022. So we had like 15 of our grassroots people seated as alternates already. Well,
Well, that's very informative because I know there was a deal, and that
Yeah.
helps me understand why the deal was the way it was.
Yeah.
I get it. Okay. I'm getting ahead of myself.
no,
Please.
that's right. So after they took a vote to accept the final credentialing of the credential report, and it was voted down. I think it was by 2 votes.
Mhm.
Maybe it got shot down. So after they voted not to accept the credentialing, do you think they announced the vote? The first thing that Jonathan, who is also the chair of this convention, first
This
thing
guy's unbelievable. Go
the
ahead.
first thing he does, he doesn't announce the results. He said, Tiffany Lesmaster Knott and Craig Bishop, who was the chair of the CD7, could you guys please come to the stage? So they went to the stage and they had a little powwow. After a few minutes, then they called the Otter Tail County chair officers to the stage as well. And up on the stage, they said, what are we going to do? We've never had this before where the credentialing wasn't accepted. So this was a compromise that they worked out. Jonathan Aniston, I think, is the one who came up with the compromise, is those 12 2022s would automatically be seated. And that would leave 25 more because we were allotted 37. We could get 25 more and we could choose from amongst us those 25. Will you guys accept that? We took a vote on it. We said, no. Why should these 12 who have no claim, they're done. This is 2025 now. They were elected in 2022. So we voted against that. Went back up to the stage, and they had another powwow. Our chair come back down and said, okay, this is the second. This is another compromise that they worked out. We will throw all the names in the hat, the 2024s and the 2022s. And then we'll draw out the first 37 to get picked.
And that's how we're going to seed it. You voted again.
We voted again. Me and a couple other guys voted against it. The swamp people voted against it as well. But anyway, it ended up passing. So then that's what we did. We took and we drew names. I compare it to this. I say this. I have a son and a daughter. And let's say my daughter goes into my son's room and he's got $200 sitting on his nightstand. And she takes that. And now they have a fight between them. That's mine. No, it's mine. It's mine. So I step in as a dad trying to work out a compromise. And I take $150 and I give that back to my son. And then I let my daughter keep $50. Well, my son got most of his money back. He should be happy, right? No. What my daughter did was she stole that money. That's not legal. The same thing with the CD7, with the compromise. None of those 2022 should have got seated. What they've done, what they were doing was illegal. They had no claim to it. They did nothing but lie, cheat, or steal. All 37 of those that were elected in 2024 and 2025 re-elected should have been seated. So we did have a victory. Brett Bussman then won.
Because you had the votes to get him.
We had the votes.
Craig Bishop got turfed out,
Yep.
which was
Right.
sensational.
That was. And then the next vote was for the deputy chair, which was Tiffany Lesmaster Knott. Her and the gal that was running against her, they had a complete tie, 135 to 135.
45, isn't it?
145, 145. It was the exact tie. Then they did this by the computer thing, the clickers. So then the next vote they did by paper. But anyway, she won. I think Tiffany ended up winning by like 7 votes.
Lies Master.
Yeah.
Not.
Not.
Master. That's fantastic. Lies Master, not. It's kind of like a double negative.
Right.
Go ahead.
So in this tie, what if those 7 people that got their names drawn out of
She would have lost.
Yes.
taken those 7 away and added 7 more
Because
to our
now
side
Brett's got this
Yeah.
Lies Master, not.
as his
He's
deputy
dragging
chair.
her along like a ball and chain.
Right.
Yeah,
Right?
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
And then there was also
And then we got Michael Broadcorp,
Mhm.
who the party hired.
Mhm.
For some reason, do you know that Michael Broadcorp has been taking cannonball shots at Brett Bussman?
Oh
Are you-
no.
Oh, see, this is the kind of stuff we can all get together. You know, this Broadcorp was on the payroll. I mean, the donors paid for a guy that endorsed Harris Waltz.
Right.
So basically, MnGOP paid for the endorsement of the Democrat ticket in the last
Oh,
cycle.
yeah, we heard about that.
That's
yeah.
what happened. Oh, that's
Yeah.
a big deal,
Yeah,
right?
we heard about that.
Well, now Michael Broadcorp, who's allegedly, we would think, no longer on the payroll, now he's taking the time to take shots at Brett Bussman, which tells, because, you know, Brett's important to us,
Mhm.
Yeah.
but in the great scheme of things,
Mhm.
I mean, it's kind of down the drain pipe, right?
Mhm.
So now Broadcorp is taking shots at Bussman, which tells me someone's still paying him to
Mhm.
do it,
Right.
because there's no reason for him to do it.
No.
Mhm.
So this is a dude that the party paid. He trashed me. I mean, he doesn't want to really tangle with me, and why should he? Because I'm going to tangle back with him, and he cuts out clips, 10 seconds clips, and tries to make me this, or that, or this, and so. And he was terrible to Royce, Dustin Gragey. There's a whole bunch of them that are in some way, shape, or form using their social media platforms to attack citizens.
Mhm.
I mean, it's just awful. And they're attacking Brett right now.
Yeah.
And I would like you to know that it pisses me off,
Me too.
you know? And I'm sure you guys have been attacked too.
Yeah.
We just don't know it down here. I'm sure there's a lot of social media about you up in your backyard.
Yeah.
But Brett's getting attacked. They're calling him a flat earther.
Yeah.
Wow.
We love Brett. Brett has been fighting for us for the last 2 years. He's been on our side. He's been right in the battle with us. So we love Brett. We just wish we could have got him some more help, because they're outnumbered like about 2-1 in that area. So some vice chairs that got elected. Had those 7 people not been seated,
It'd have been
and
totally
it would
different.
have been
Yeah.
a 14-point swing. It could have been totally different. Some of the officers, the secretary, the treasurer, we don't know what the outcomes would have been. But right now, Brett's in an uphill battle where they're outnumbered about 2-1
On his board, you're talking.
on his board. Yes.
Yeah, so we've got, I ran for the chair of CD3. Had I won, it'd have been me and all the rest of these people.
Right.
And I would have done it, but I wouldn't have been effective because they'd have blocked everything I tried to do.
Yeah.
And what I would have tried to do, and let me tell you what the rub is here. I would have tried to broaden the tent of the Republican Party. I want more citizens involved. I would have really gone into the precincts to organize the precincts. I would have really had events. I would have used media. I would have tried to bring in thousands of new people into the party.
Right.
And I wouldn't have vetted those people. And I told these apparatchiks, my job is not to vet who comes into the party. They come in. We want them in. I mean, Alex Plekish, I saw him at a convention I was at. We can't let that person in. They're a Democrat. Well, don't we want Democrats to join the Republican Party?
Yeah.
I mean, we want everybody in the
wanna convert
Republican
'em.
Party. Yeah, that's the whole point. You don't believe in Christ? Oh, let me tell you a story. We want you to convert, to become a believer.
Yeah.
That's the whole point of preaching the gospel. That's the whole point of preaching the philosophy of republicanism. But that's not their mission. Their mission is to maintain control.
Yeah.
So they don't want more people. So I call Randy Sutter, who told me he doesn't want more Republicans. We just need more work from the Republicans that we have. I call him Mr. We don't need any more Republicans.
Wow.
Like I call Alex, Mr. We don't do that here.
Mhm.
That'd be politics.
Mhm.
Why would any American citizen get involved in politics and then be told we don't do politics here? I mean, the thing is crazy. And so your story is so compelling. So what's the next move?
We got to continue to educate people, even within our own ranks, because this is my saying. I put something out a few weeks ago. I believe this is the consistency of the Republican Party. Most of the politicians and the executive people on top, they are rhinos. They're not really fighting for the same things we are. They don't care about limited government. They don't care about lower taxes, fewer regulations. They're in there to empower themselves to be able to support the donor class, the people who are funding their own campaign. We need these people removed. In order to unify, we need to be on the same page. We need to be in agreement. We need to be moving the ball in the same direction. The people at the top need to be replaced, and other people need to be woken up. They don't quite yet see it. They don't understand that what we have now is a uniparty.
It's a very, very great comment. I lose my temper about this. But, I tell people all the time, I hold all these meetings and, people know what my politics is at these meetings. And then there'll be somebody there that's more centrist or kind of uniparty-ish. And then all these people will jump on them.
Yeah.
And it's my meeting and I'll say, stop. Raise your hand if you voted for George W. Bush. Did you vote for George W. Bush?
Did.
Raise your hand. Did you vote for George W. Bush?
Yeah.
You might not have been
Yeah, I
here.
know.
You're off the hook.
Yeah.
But, would you vote for George W. Bush today?
No.
Okay. So we have so many people in the party that haven't come to grips with the awakening
Right.
that you and I have gone through, the
Right.
Great Awakening.
Yeah.
And, of course, the party stalwarts don't want the people to wake up.
Right.
And, in fact, they will say, we're better off with the Republican than we are with the Democrat.
Yeah.
Mr. Tanner, do you have that quote that you can read?
Yeah. You want me to
Please
it right
read
now?
that quote.
All right. From Alexander Hamilton. If we must have an enemy at the head of government, let it be one whom we can oppose, and for whom we are not responsible, who will not involve our party in the disgrace of his foolish and bad measures. I'm a
Yeah.
terrible reader. I'm sorry if
Yeah.
I tried
Yeah.
my best there.
But
Right.
the point of the quote is what Hamilton was saying. Don't give in to the lie that we have to choose the lesser of two evils.
Mhm.
That is not, first of all, it's not biblical.
Right.
Mhm.
We don't give in to evil. We rebuke it and
Mhm.
refute it. And the idea that we're better off with the lesser of two evils, what ends up happening? Well, the George Bush thing is the perfect example.
Mhm.
He was not truly aligned with what you and I are talking about
Right.
here today. He was a big government politician.
Mhm.
They passed the Patriot Act.
Yeah.
He started the endless war.
Mhm.
And Medicare Part D was a giant expansion of government.
Right.
And the whole period of time while he was president, Republicans lost office all over the country.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then it led to the election of Obama,
Mm-hmm.
and that galvanized Republicans.
Right.
What did Obama do? He continued the endless war.
Mm-hmm.
We had Obamacare, and he ratified the Patriot Act. But Republicans gained power throughout the entire country because we had an asshole. And see, that's what the Democrats are doing now. They're just as fractured as the Republicans are.
Mm-hmm.
They got their uniparty centrists like
Yeah.
Chuck Schumer,
Yeah.
Mhm.
but they got AOC and Bernie out there.
Yeah.
Well, see, Trump
Exactly.
will unite them,
Mm-hmm.
and they will come back with the fury
Mm-hmm.
to overcome Donald Trump. So what we're doing is we're making this mistake in the Republican Party that we're settling for candidates in the election of candidates that really do not represent the values of we the people.
Mhm.
Right.
As you were saying, they have different masters,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
And then it just dilutes, defeats, demoralizes conservatives.
Yeah. I want to challenge your audience if they could get me a clip of Ronald Reagan actually saying this. You've probably heard this before, where they say Reagan said that if somebody is 80% in agreement with me, they're my friend, not my enemy. That was not what I get from Ronald Reagan. Ronald Reagan said we need to be a party of bold colors, not pale pastels. This compromising thing, like you say, every time we compromise, we move a little bit farther to the left, to the left, to the left, to the left, till we go off the cliff. We have to quit compromising. We have to go completely the other way. We need to turn this ship around. So if anybody knows or can find me a video or an audio of Reagan actually saying that 80-20 thing, I would love to hear it because I don't
Well, you
believe
can
he said
send it right on into to the Professor Penn podcast, and I'll get
Yeah.
it right up to Merle. That'd be my pleasure.
Yeah.
Because they tell me that all the time. Or
Yeah.
the 11th commandment,
Yeah.
never criticize another Republican.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, even if Reagan said it, who was Reagan?
Yeah.
We love Reagan.
Right.
He started globalism. He was
Yeah.
the one that really entrenched globalism. He was the free trade maven.
Yeah.
Okay. And it may have made sense at that time.
Right.
But he started it, and he was the one that started the worldwide military adventurism. He reconciled us with both the British and the Vatican. Reagan was not exactly who we think he is.
Mhm. Right.
Was he better than Carter?
Mhm.
Yeah,
Right.
but it wasn't. We tend to look
Right.
back. We
That's true.
create heroes.
Mhm.
That's part of the deal.
Right.
I'm going to tell you, Ronald Reagan scared the hell out of me. I
Right.
was a young man, and I was not a big Reagan fan
Right.
but he did go all in on defeating the Soviets.
Yeah.
It could have gone down another way.
Right.
He did a lot of good things.
Right.
I'm not saying I'm opposed to Reagan. I'm saying that he has been, well, let me just tell you, like in Wisconsin,
Mhm.
they no longer have Lincoln-Reagan dinners. They're just Lincoln dinners.
Oh, okay.
So people are starting to look at what he believed may have been very appropriate in 1981,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't work in 2025. We have a new leader now. We have a new political ideology that really we have a leader of the party that's taking us in a new direction.
Yeah.
But not here in Minnesota. Because underneath all of this
Right.
hell that you've been through, do you support Donald Trump?
For the most part, I sleep with my eyes open. I still question some of the things that he does. Like with the jab, promoting the jab is one of the things that I was not pleased with. He did take a couple hits on the Second Amendment things, but so for the most part, I would agree with what Donald Trump does.
Well, I have to say, it's, around this table,
Yeah.
your criticisms are well received.
Right.
But my point is,
Mhm.
in this delegation, in this Min GOP,
Mhm.
there is a undercurrent of very anti-Trump
Mhm.
Right.
politics.
Right.
Alex Plekish was not a Trump Republican.
Oh, yes.
Okay? So, I know this. He told me.
Right.
Alex, go ahead and lie. You never said it to me. I know you said it to me. So, this is the way it is. If we're not going to unify right now,
Right.
because we're not going to get perfect.
Right.
That's just not part of the human experience.
Most of the establishment they don't like Donald
They
Trump.
don't like him right
Because
now.
with Donald Trump, he threatens to end the gravy train. They would rather have a Democrat in there where they lose temporary power, but at least the the gravy train continues where Trump threatens that, and they don't want that at all. So they use Trump, though. They use Trump to raise money. They use Trump in order to get reelected,
They
but they
use
hate
Trump.
him.
They use Trump to justify who they are.
Yeah.
All these people running around with these red hats on
Yeah.
doesn't mean that they really
Mm.
No.
support. And for me, just so you know, I'm going to clarify this for my audience. And I say this all the time. If you love Donald Trump, I'm not against that.
Mhm.
But I want the idea of American sovereignty.
Right.
I want the idea of my personal liberty.
Right.
Mhm.
And clearly, Trump is in every real political policy that he is putting in place
Mhm.
relative to trade,
Mhm.
relative to ending the gravy train,
Right.
relative to taking on these universities,
Yeah.
relative to taking on these judges.
Mhm.
He's pushing back on a system that really doesn't have any space in it for me
Right.
because I believe in God.
Right.
And it's a godless, it's really an anti-God system.
It is.
So if you see that,
Mhm.
then anybody that's going to push back on that system is better than an alternative that's going to continue to build out
Mhm.
this really, which is effectively an antichrist system.
Right.
Mhm.
That's how I see it.
Yeah.
So, apropos to what you're saying, the Christians that are not participating because their preachers are telling them not to participate,
Mhm.
what kind of a scam is that?
Right.
I mean, if we lose control of this country, completely lose control,
Right.
they're going to round these Christians up and they're going to
Mhm.
kill them
Exactly.
because it happened every single time
Mhm.
the communists have completely gained control. Look what happened in Russia. The
Right.
Bolsheviks slaughtered millions of Christians.
Mhm.
In China, maybe 50 million people were killed. Political dissidents, so to
Mhm.
speak. So we're really fighting. Uh, we're in a place where the fight is still within the constitutional process of our country.
Mhm.
But what Trump is seeing is that the left has used the constitutional process to undo the Constitution. And he's
Right.
got the balls to stand up and say, you're not going to do that anymore.
Mhm.
So I have those one eye open when I think about it.
Yeah.
And I'm not openly speaking up against it, which is
Right.
pissing off some people, because I'm looking at what he's actually doing.
Mhm.
That's good.
Right.
Mhm.
And that, this trade thing
Mhm.
for me, and I do a lot of trade,
Mhm.
it's good. I may go bankrupt because of Donald Trump's policies.
Uh-huh.
I would gladly give up my business for the freedom of my children.
Right. Yes.
It's way more important than the money.
Yes.
So, and I look at, where is all the support? Why is everybody so focused on the money?
Right.
Are Christians so sold out to mammon that they would sell out their faith for low prices at Walmart? Doesn't that sound a little strange?
A lot are. Yeah.
Well, that's we need to have as you say, more education.
Yeah.
People need to self-reflect and think about what they're doing. Your story is so compelling.
Mhm.
Uh, I want to thank you for coming down. It was for me very informative. It was almost like,
Mhm.
people are watching me get schooled. There's two parts of this if you're watching. Number one, how do you create political action in your own backyard? You have to have groups to create lists of people that you can turn into a community, which you use the caravan of
Mhm.
patriots
Mhm.
and you use this training,
Yep.
and you use social media.
Mhm.
Brilliant. But the main part of it for me is because I've been fighting for quite a while and it's tiring. It's physically tiring. And I'm not a spring chicken. Um, it's the endurance that you've shown is so, I'm speechless by your endurance to do this. And it's inspiring to me because I have to do the same thing. Really, you can tell I'm getting emotional
Yeah.
Mhm.
because I'm fighting these people right in their home district. And
Professor Penn, when you speak the truth, people will hate you or people will love you. So you need to be ready for both, and especially the hate. People will love you and people will hate you. And I will speak more for Merle because he's more vocal than I am. Um, there's a lot of people that don't like him just because he's very outspoken and he stands for truth and he stands for what he believes and he will not back down. So even amongst our people, sometimes they try to silence him, but he's not like controlled. You can't control him because you won't buy him out for a position. You won't buy him out for nothing. So he will stick with truth and what he stands for. So yeah. So when you speak truth, you will be hated and you will be loved. So
Well, I'm going to tell you, you keep speaking the truth, and may you live long, and God bless you, and God bless you for coming down. So informative. There are going to be so many clips that are going to be watched by thousands of people about how to have the endurance and the strategy to fight back, to just let American citizens self govern. It's just a beautiful thing. Thank you so much. God bless you. Thanks for coming down. Tanner,
Thank you.
thank
Thank you for
you.
having
Thank you
Of
very
us.
course.
much.
Of course.
Yeah.
And I look forward to seeing
Yeah,
both
thank
of
you for
you
having us.
soon again. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank
Bye
you.
bye.
Bye.